The galactic core systems had never known fear, not in 1,000 cycles. Their fleets stretched across 100,000 light-years. Their weapons could collapse stars. Their science had bent time itself. Among their ruling council, humans were still whispered of as a curiosity. Newcomers to the stars, backward creatures of a savage blue world on the edge of mapped space. But that changed the moment the warship appeared. It started as a garbled transmission, a faint blip picked up by long-range listening arrays orbiting Drethos Prime. A ship, unidentified, moving at impossible speed through the black. The analysts laughed at first, assuming sensor error, but the signal grew clearer. It wasn't distortion. It was a vessel, accelerating past known velocity limits, aimed straight for the trade nexus of the core worlds. High Admiral Rekar, a being of 6 centuries and a mind sharpened by endless victories, summoned his command council in haste. "Project it," he ordered. The main holoscreen flickered, then stabilized. The image sharpened. That was when the room went silent. The thing on the screen was brutal in its design. No sleek curves, no shimmering alloys, just angular armor plating dark as the void itself, scarred and massive. No transponder code, no diplomatic beacon. Weapons arrays, dozens, lined every inch of the hull. Its power signature was off the charts, reactor readings spiking into unknown ranges. "This is not possible," one of the tacticians whispered. But it was. And worse, the ship was human. An old, grizzled intelligence officer finally spoke. We've heard rumors. Deep black programs. Human military vessels that don't answer to any planetary government. They call them Dread-class warships." Admiral Rekar narrowed his gaze. "You mean to say, this is one of them?" The officer nodded grimly. "Yes, and if it's here, they're not here to talk." By the 3rd hour, panic had begun to spread. Civilian transport channels were suddenly clogged with desperate requests to leave orbit. Merchant guilds began recalling their fleets. Even several military captains, veterans of countless campaigns, privately questioned whether their standard battlecruisers could match what the sensors now showed in excruciating detail. Then the second signal came. Not a message, not words, but a broad-spectrum burst of data, raw footage from a patrol flotilla stationed along the outer perimeter. The video played across the Council's screens in eerie silence. 5 alien corvettes, light and maneuverable, approached the human warship with formation-perfect precision. No warning shots, no diplomacy. The corvettes opened fire. Beams, torpedoes, every weapon they had. The human ship didn't flinch. A single pulse, one from what the analysts guessed was some kind of rail accelerator cannon, lanced out from the human vessel. The first corvette evaporated in a burst of molten debris. The remaining 4 scattered. Another pulse, 2 more ships gone, nothing left but ionized wreckage. The last 2 tried to flee. The human ship pursued, methodical and relentless, closing the gap with engine capabilities that defied known physics. Another shot, a clean kill. 1 survivor remained, limping, trailing debris. And then, coldest of all, the human warship transmitted something. A signal so raw, so ancient in nature that many translators failed to process it. Finally, an old human linguistics expert deciphered the primitive words. 1 sentence, 1 line, spoken in a deep, deliberate male voice. "First contact, last warning." That was when the council chambers erupted into chaos. "They're not here to negotiate," one noble shrieked. "We must mobilize the fleets," another bellowed. "It's too late. It's already inside the Corps' defensive perimeters," came another panicked report. Admiral Rekar stood frozen, watching the playback on loop. A single human ship, a lone war machine, had annihilated their outer patrol in under 2 minutes, and it was still coming. Across the council, whispers turned to dread. "What if this is just a scout?" someone asked quietly. "What if more are coming?" And the unspoken fear lingered in every mind. If one human warship could do this, what else had they built in the shadows of their savage little world? The warship closed in. Across the core worlds, panic spread like wildfire. News channels looped distorted footage of the human dreadnought. Systems that had stood unchallenged for millennia were suddenly gripped by fear. And above it all, in the command tower of Drethos Prime, High Admiral Rekar watched in grim silence. His second-in-command, Fleet Marshal Corvex, entered at a near run. "Admiral, we've scrambled the 7th and 9th Defense Fleets, 70 heavy cruisers, 150 attack frigates. The dreadnought will reach weapons range within 4 hours." Rekar's eyes narrowed. "And ground-based defenses? Planetary cannons on full charge, orbital platform standing ready." A pause. Rekar exhaled. "It will not be enough." Corvex stiffened. "Sir, I saw the footage." Rekar turned, voice low. "I saw how easily it dismantled those patrol ships. Those corvettes weren't scrap heaps. They were top of the line, and the human ship cut through them as if they were paper." Corvex swallowed but said nothing. Rekar continued, tone dark. "You saw the same thing I did. Its armor deflected direct hits. Its energy output is beyond our understanding. And that cannon, that weapon was obscene." He paced, a habit rare for the old warlord. "This is not just a ship. It is a message, one designed to instill terror." He stopped, glaring at the swirling image of the dreadnought on the main screen. "And it is succeeding," a comms officer called out from below. "Admiral, civilian traffic is collapsing. Hundreds of vessels are attempting unauthorized jumps. Spaceport Control is unable to manage them." Rekar's voice snapped across the chamber. "Lock down the jump gates. Martial law is in effect. No ship leaves Drethos without my order." Another report. "Admiral, neighboring systems are transmitting inquiries. They want to know if Drethos is under attack." Rekar's lip curled. "Tell them nothing. We cannot project weakness, not yet." Corvex hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Sir, we should consider evacuation of key council members." Rekar rounded on him. "Evacuate, and send a message of surrender across the stars? Number, we hold the line here." Corvex's face tightened, but he nodded. Then, another alert. The sensor chief's voice cracked. "Admiral, new telemetry. The dreadnought has altered trajectory. It's descending toward geostationary orbit over Drethos itself." Rekar's blood chilled. It was bypassing the outer defenses, heading straight for the heart of the core. His voice rang out. "Ready all batteries. Prepare the fleets. If this human war machine wants a fight, by the gods, we'll give it one." 4 hours later, the battle lines were drawn. High above Drethos Prime, the void shimmered with power. The 7th and 9th Defense Fleets hung in formation, weapons charged. Orbital platforms bristled with energy cannons. On the ground below, planetary shield generators hummed at full output, casting a faint blue sheen over the capital. And through it all, the human dreadnought advanced, alone, unhurried, unstoppable. From the command deck of the Ravager's Claw, Rekar watched the enemy approach. The dreadnought dwarfed any known vessel. Its hull was a jagged mass of blackened plating, scars from battles unknown. No insignia, no markings, just the cold, merciless silhouette of a predator. Rekar's Second Fleet Admiral, Varos, leaned in. "Orders, sir?" Rekar's voice was steel. "Target main reactor core, full spread, flanking squadrons to encircle, no hesitation." Across the fleet, captains relayed the command. A heartbeat later, the first volleys were fired. Space erupted in blinding arcs of energy, plasma bolts, torpedoes, beam lances, a coordinated storm of firepower hurled at the human vessel. And yet, the dreadnought barely seemed to notice. Its forward shields absorbed the assault with eerie calm. Not a scratch on its hull. Then it returned fire. A single lance of crimson light speared outward, not a beam but a pulse weapon of unknown design. One of the lead frigates simply vanished, hull atomized in an instant. Panic rippled through the formation. More human weaponry came online, side batteries unleashing a brutal rhythmic bombardment. 1, 2, 3 more ships fell, torn apart by kinetic slugs moving at relativistic speeds. The dreadnought moved with impossible precision, as though piloted by something more than mortal. Its targeting was flawless, its tactics ruthless. It seemed to hunt each vessel, driving fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned captains. In the command tower, Rekar gripped the rail. "Hold formation, do not break ranks." But even he could see. The human warship was dictating the battle, and they were losing. By the end of the first hour, 40 ships were gone. The defense fleets were in disarray, struggling to maintain cohesion. The orbital platforms began to falter. Human rail rounds punched through hardened armor as if it were air. And still, the dreadnought advanced. Desperate, Rekar ordered the activation of the planet's ancient hypercannon, a weapon buried deep within the core, designed to fire energy pulses through the atmosphere itself. The tower shook as the massive weapon charged. Energy readings spiked. Seconds later, a blinding shaft of pure destructive force lanced upward, striking the human warship square in its center. For a moment, hope flickered. Then the smoke cleared, and the dreadnought remained. Its shields had dimmed, scorched and shimmering, but the ship was intact. It turned deliberately toward the planetary defenses, as if in answer. The ship's forward batteries aligned. Then came a new kind of attack, a gravity weapon, field-based and brutal. Space itself seemed to twist as a pulse rippled outward. Shield generators overloaded. Defensive grids collapsed. Below, planetary shields flickered, then died. In the capital, alarms blared as civilians fled for cover. The dreadnought had breached Drethos Prime. Inside the warship, a single human commander stood at the helm. His name was Captain Grant Ward. Tall, hardened by war, his face bore the cold calm of a man who had seen too much. His crew was silent, each one hand-picked from the darkest corners of Earth's Black Ops military. Ward's voice cut through the bridge. "Status?" His tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Briggs, grinned darkly. "They're pissing themselves, sir. Shields are down. Outer fleet's broken." Ward's eyes remained fixed on the forward display. "No retaliation orders yet?" "Nothing but frantic comms and retreat signals." Ward nodded. "Good." He leaned closer to the comm panel, keying a transmission, this time a deliberate signal to the planet below. A single message. "Your defenses are obsolete. Your rule is over. Surrender or be extinguished." High above, in the battered command tower of Drethos, Rekar heard the transmission. His officers turned to him in horror. "Sir, what do we do?" Rekar stared at the screen. His fleets were shattered, his planet defenseless. A single human warship had broken the might of the core worlds, and worse, it had done so with precision, restraint, and terrifying ease. Rekar's voice was low, bitter. "We stall, delay, seek negotiation." But even as he spoke, he knew. There would be no negotiation. The humans had come for dominance, and they would not be stopped. Captain Grant Ward stood motionless on the bridge of the Havoc, eyes locked on the planet below. Drethos Prime, capital of the core systems, seat of an arrogant council that had mocked humanity for decades. Now it hung beneath his warship like a wounded animal. Its once imposing fleets lay scattered across orbit, wreckage drifting in silent testimony to their failure. Ward spoke without turning. "Report." Briggs's voice came steady from the tactical station. "Enemy fleet's broken, sir. Survivors are retreating to outer system space. Ground defenses mostly offline. Planetary shields are down." Ward's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Casualties?" "None on our end. Minor shield fluctuations. Hull integrity at 98%. The human war machine had bled nothing. Ward's voice lowered. "And planetary response?" Briggs keyed through intercepted channels. "Chaos, sir. Civilian traffic's a mess. Military command structures fragmented. Our message broadcast has triggered widespread panic." Ward finally moved, stepping down toward the central display. The tactical hologram flickered with layers of intelligence. Panicked civilian transports, fractured council transmissions, burning wrecks from the earlier engagement. He glanced at Briggs. "Surface resistance?" "Best estimates. Localized garrisons, no coordinated planetary defense left. Command authority is crumbling. If we move now—" Ward cut him off with a sharp nod. "We will." The bridge crew straightened. They had drilled for this. The Havoc wasn't just a dreadnought. It was a first strike platform, built in secret Earth shipyards beneath Europa's ice, armed with weapons forbidden by galactic treaty. Every piece of its design existed to wage war without mercy. Ward activated the fleet comm. "All units, prepare for atmospheric breach. Target command hubs, planetary defense remnants, and high council strongpoints. Ground assault teams to stand by." A chorus of affirmatives filled the channel. Briggs leaned closer. "Sir, one more thing. External long-range sensors just picked up subspace distortions." Ward's brow furrowed. "Explain." Briggs adjusted the display. "Multiple signals, faint but growing. Possible reinforcements. Someone out there is responding to the broadcast." Ward studied the data. Reinforcements. Expected. He looked back to the planet. Time was short. "Then we move faster." Far below, High Admiral Rekar paced the shattered war room beneath the Capitol spire. The once grand chamber shook with distant impacts as debris from the orbital battle rained through the atmosphere. Cries echoed through the command channels, calls for evacuation, for orders, for leadership. Rekar's officers huddled near the flickering tactical display. One young aide, pale and trembling, looked up. "Admiral, shall we order full planetary evacuation?" Rekar's glare silenced him. "Evacuate where?" he snapped. "The jump gates are compromised. The outer fleets are gone. And now that thing," he jabbed a finger toward the shimmering image of the human warship, "has complete orbital control." The aide swallowed. "Sir, the Council is demanding extraction." Rekar's eyes burned. The Council, pampered fools who had dismissed humanity as backward primitives, who had ignored his warnings when the first reports of Terran black projects surfaced. Now they cowered behind their palatial walls, begging for salvation. "They may demand all they like," Rekar said coldly. "Our priority is the defense of this world." Another officer, older, voice grim, spoke up. "Admiral, we have no effective defenses left." Rekar faced them all, shoulders squared. "Then we fight, street to street, building to building if we must. Let the humans bleed for every step they take." His gaze swept the room. "I will not go down in history as the admiral who surrendered Drethos Prime without a fight." There was a grim nod from the gathered officers. Yet in his heart, Rekar knew this was no ordinary foe. The humans had come prepared, with technology far beyond what the Corps' arrogance had imagined. And worst of all, they had not come to negotiate. In orbit, the Havoc descended. Atmospheric friction played harmlessly across its hardened hull. Plasma vents glowed along its flanks, bleeding heat. Deep within, drop bays opened. Ward stood before the assault team, 100 elite soldiers in black armor exo-rigs, their helmets featureless and cold. "Your orders are clear," Ward said, voice calm. "Primary objective, decapitation. Kill the Council. Destroy command infrastructure. Spread maximum fear." He stepped forward, gaze hard. "Secondary objective, capture intelligence on core military assets. No mercy, no hesitation. Make them understand what it means to provoke humanity." A chorus of clicks as weapons were checked, safeties disengaged. Briggs appeared beside Ward. "Insertion points locked. No active resistance detected on ingress paths." Ward nodded. "Deploy." The assault teams launched. Drop pods screamed through the clouds, sonic booms rattling the battered cityscape. Civilians fled in terror as black shapes tore through the sky, slamming into key points across the capital. Explosions followed, rapid gunfire, screams. And above it all, the havoc loomed, its rail batteries picking off remaining planetary defense emplacements with clinical precision. Raykar stood at the defense command post when the first reports came in. "Human strike teams breaching the central district. Council compound under assault, security forces overrun. Multiple enemy landers inbound, no organized resistance." The Admiral clenched his fists. Around him, officers scrambled to coordinate a response, but the human forces moved with terrifying speed. Their weapons cut through core troopers as if they wore no armor. Their tactics, brutal, precise, left no room for counterattack. Raykar grabbed the comm. "To all surviving units, fall back to the inner defense ring. Hold the Citadel at all costs." He turned to his chief of security. "Get me a secure channel. I want to speak to the human commander." The officer hesitated. "Sir, they may not respond." Raykar's voice was iron. "They will." Moments later, a channel opened, static-filled, unstable. Then, clear as ice, came the voice of Captain Ward. "This is Ward." Raykar stepped to the console. "I am High Admiral Raykar of the Core Defense Command." A pause. Then Ward's voice again. "And?" Raykar's jaw tightened. "You've made your point. The Core Council is prepared to discuss terms." Another pause. Longer this time. When Ward spoke, his words were cold as death. "There will be no terms, Admiral." Raykar's blood froze. "You invaded our space," Ward continued. "You sanctioned attacks on human colonies. You murdered civilians under the protection of Earth's diplomatic treaty." The channel crackled as Ward leaned in. "Now we return the favor." The line cut. Raykar stared at the silent console. He turned to his staff. "Prepare for final defense." On the ground, the assault raged. Captain Ward led from the front. His exo-rig enhanced every movement, servo motors amplifying his strength. Plasma rounds hissed from his rifle, cutting down fleeing security forces. The Corps' elite guards barely slowed the human advance. Their centuries-old doctrine could not match Earth's savage, adaptive warfare. Rooms cleared in seconds. Council strongpoints burned. Ward moved with relentless purpose. Each step drove fear deeper into the enemy ranks. His men followed with cold efficiency. No quarter, no hesitation. Soon, the great council spire came into view. Briggs' voice crackled over comms. "Outer perimeter breached, sir. Minimal resistance." Ward replied curtly. "Push in. Take the spire." The final act had begun. Inside the spire, council members huddled in panic. "We must surrender," one wailed. "To whom?" another spat. "They aren't listening!" Suddenly, the great doors exploded inward. Smoke and dust filled the chamber as black armored figures stormed through. Energy blades flashed. Gunfire echoed. Seconds later, silence. Captain Ward strode into the chamber, visor retracting. His eyes, cold, unreadable, swept the room. Before him, the council cowered. Ward spoke one word. "Kneel." And they did. Far above, in the shattered command post, High Admiral Rekar received the final report. "The council, captured. The spire has fallen." Silence fell across the room. Rekar closed his eyes. "It is done." When he opened them, his voice was steady. "Transmit ceasefire signal." One of his officers hesitated. "Sir?" Rekar's gaze hardened. "There is no honor in further slaughter." The signal was sent. Aboard the Havoc, Ward received it. Briggs looked at him. "Sir, ceasefire?" Ward's expression didn't change. "A formality. The planet is ours." He keyed the fleet communication. "Transmit planetary lockdown protocols. No ships leave orbit. Inform Earth Command. Dreadnoughts Prime has fallen." A grim smile touched his lips. "And tell them." He looked out at the burning world below. The galaxy will never forget what they saw today. Dreadnoughts Prime was burning. From orbit, the once pristine capital planet looked scarred. Vast columns of smoke rising through the atmosphere, entire districts leveled by the surgical precision of the Havoc's guns and the merciless advance of its ground teams. Captain Grant Ward stood on the observation deck of the dreadnought, arms folded behind his back, eyes fixed on the battered world below. His armor bore the soot and scratches of battle, though he seemed untouched by it all. Behind him, Briggs approached, helmet tucked under one arm. "Planet secure, sir," Briggs reported. "Major resistance crushed. Remaining militia units are disorganized and surrendering." Ward didn't move. "And the council?" "Contained. They'll be processed per command orders." Ward finally turned, face hard. "No executions." "Not yet." Briggs raised an eyebrow. "Orders from Earth?" Ward's tone darkened. "Number from me." Briggs understood. Dead politicians made martyrs. Broken ones sent a better message. Ward stepped forward, gaze returning to the smoldering planet. "Have the long-range scans picked up those reinforcement signals?" Briggs keyed the display, projecting it onto the reinforced glass. "Yes, sir. Fleet strength signatures. 3, maybe 4 battle groups converging on this sector. Estimated time to arrival, 48 hours. Ward's lips pressed into a thin line. "Good. We'll be ready." Briggs hesitated, then asked quietly, "Sir, are we staying?" Ward's eyes narrowed. "We didn't come all this way to take Dreadnoughts just to abandon it." He turned fully now, voice low but sharp. "The galaxy's been laughing at us for too long, treating humanity as a minor species. A joke." Briggs nodded grimly. "Not anymore." Ward's gaze hardened. "We hold this world, and when their fleets arrive..." His voice grew colder. "We make sure they leave knowing exactly what it means to provoke Earth." In the ruined council spire, High Admiral Rekar sat in chains. The Corps' great council chamber was no longer the gleaming symbol of galactic order. Its polished floors were blackened with ash. The great banners of the Corps hung in tatters. The few surviving council members huddled in silence, stripped of their ornate robes, watched over by silent human soldiers in black armor. And standing before them, like a judge from a darker age, was Captain Ward. Rekar lifted his head as Ward approached. The Admiral's uniform was torn, one eye swollen from a battlefield wound, but his gaze remained defiant. Ward studied him without speaking. Then he addressed the room. "You ruled this region of space for 1,000 cycles," Ward began, voice even, carrying in the broken chamber. "You saw yourselves as untouchable, superior." He let the words hang in the air, cold and sharp. "You sanctioned attacks on human worlds," he continued. "Authorized blockades, sabotaged our trade, and when we sent envoys, you spat on our treaties." Ward's gaze swept the room. "This is your reward. A long silence. Then one of the council members, a thin, trembling elder, spoke up. What do you want? Ward's eyes locked on the speaker. Want? He almost laughed. I want your entire species to understand that humanity is not a fringe civilization to be toyed with. I want your fleets to remember the black shape of my ship every time they entered jump space. He leaned in slightly. And I want you to kneel. A shocked murmur rippled through the chamber. Rekar's voice rasped. You would humiliate us. Ward's expression didn't flicker. I would educate you. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, one of the younger counselors dropped to his knees. Another followed, eyes downcast. One by one, the leaders of the Corps humbled themselves before the human warlord. Rekar remained standing. Ward approached him directly, boots echoing in the silent chamber. You still stand, Admiral, Ward said quietly. Rekar's battered face lifted. I will not kneel to an invader. Ward's gaze was ice. Then you will watch your empire kneel without you. Without another word, Ward turned on his heel and strode from the chamber. Behind him, the chains of old power broke. Later, in the command chamber aboard the Havoc, Ward conferred with his top officers. The room was darkened, tactical displays glowing with streams of data, planetary scans, fleet movements, intercepted communications. Briggs stood beside him, along with two more senior operatives, Major Keller and Intelligence Chief Hawk. Keller reported first. Resistance cells are popping up in the outer districts, mostly militia remnants. We're deploying suppression teams. Ward nodded. Use overwhelming force, no drawn-out engagements. Keller's mouth twisted into a humorless smile. They'll be begging for peace by sundown. Hawk spoke next, voice clipped. We've cracked the Council's secure archives, pulling intel now. Fleet dispositions, black projects, economic nodes. Ward's gaze sharpened. Good. Find anything that weakens the Corps' outer systems. I want this conquest to ripple. Then Briggs updated on the incoming fleets. Reinforcements still on approach. 48 hours, give or take. Mixed signatures. Looks like they're pulling from multiple neighboring sectors. Not a full war fleet, but heavy enough. Ward's fingers drummed on the console. They'll expect us to run. Hawk grinned. They'll be disappointed. Ward nodded once. Prepare the Havoc for blockade posture. Arm full warhead complements. Charge Grav-Lance batteries. He looked to Keller. Ready ground defenses. If they try to land, we break them. Finally, to Briggs. Transmit this message to all approaching forces. Wideband, no encryption. Ward dictated. To all Corps fleets en route to Drethos. This world is under human control. Approach at your peril. The first shot will be your death sentence. Choose wisely. Briggs smiled darkly. They won't listen. Ward's eyes gleamed. I'm counting on it. In the Corps' outer systems, panic spread faster than the approaching fleets. News of Drethos Prime's fall triggered a galactic shockwave. No one, no species, had ever conquered the Corps' capital in open battle. World after world broadcast desperate requests for guidance. Smaller fleets scrambled to defend vulnerable trade routes. Merchant guilds began pulling resources from frontier sectors. And deep within the Corps' high command, admirals and lords argued furiously. Send the entire armada, one shouted. We must retake Drethos immediately. We can't, another snapped. The jump lanes are unstable, and the humans, they planned this. They must pay. And what if this is just their first move? If we commit too heavily and they strike our other holdings? The room descended into shouting chaos. But one voice, old and cold, cut through the noise. Admiral Corvin, the only surviving senior fleet marshal not caught at Drethos, rose slowly. Enough, he growled. We will respond, but not in panic. He paced the room, gaze hard. We underestimated humanity. That was our mistake. Now we correct it. A pause. But we will not underestimate them again. Aboard the Havoc, Ward stood on the bridge as the first enemy signatures crept onto long-range sensors. "They're coming," Briggs said quietly. Ward's voice was steady. "Let them." The crew moved like clockwork, arming systems, locking firing solutions. Ward's gaze never left the stars ahead. This was what they had trained for. Not just a battle, but a lesson. A war cry. A message to every arrogant empire that had mocked Earth for too long. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. Humanity would never be underestimated again. And the galaxy was about to learn that lesson in blood. The stars above Dreadnoughts shimmered with the distortion of incoming fleets. On the bridge of the Havoc, the tension was sharp enough to taste. The crew moved with focused precision, every station alive with tactical readouts. Warning chimes pulsed as long-range sensors updated again and again, new ships dropping from jump space with each passing minute. Briggs called out from the console. "Multiple signatures confirmed. 30 capital-class vessels, at least 50 support craft. No diplomatic channels open. Full combat posture." Captain Ward stood at the helm, visor down, voice cold. "Expected." He turned to Major Keller, who had taken a position near the weapons station. "Status of planetary defenses?" "Ground teams in full lockdown," Keller replied. "Anti-ship batteries active. We've fortified key positions in case they try to land troops." Ward nodded once. "Good." Another signal echoed through the command systems. Hawk looked up from the intelligence station. "Interception complete. The core fleet is broadcasting. No terms, no warning. They're coming in hot." Briggs grinned without humor. "No surprise there." Ward's gaze returned to the tactical display. The enemy ships were forming a wedge formation, aiming to push the Havoc out of orbit and retake Dreadnoughts by force. Ward's voice was steel. "Arm all Gravlance batteries. Full combat spread." The crew moved without hesitation. Ward's gaze hardened. The core thought they were the superior force, that humans would run, that they would fold under the pressure of a massed fleet. They were about to learn differently. Aboard the lead core flagship Judicator's Wrath, Admiral Corvin stood at the center of his command deck, eyes burning with fury. The tactical hologram displayed the Havoc, still holding position in Dreadnoughts orbit, unmoving, defiant. Corvin's voice was harsh. "Target their drive core. I want them crippled." His second-in-command, Commodore Valek, glanced warily at the display. "Admiral, their weapon systems are formidable. Perhaps a probe formation first." Corvin cut him off. "Number, we strike with full force." He turned to the comms officer. "Signal the fleet. Attack Pattern Omega. Drive them from our skies." Moments later, the core fleet surged forward, cruisers and battleships accelerating into attack vectors, weapons charging. The first shots split the void. Streams of particle beams and torpedoes lashed out, converging on the lone human dreadnought. The Havoc's shields flared, absorbing the initial impact. But Ward didn't flinch. "Return fire," Ward ordered calmly. The Havoc's Gravlance batteries fired. Invisible waves of hyper-condensed gravity slammed into the nearest core battleship. Armor plates crumpled. Internal structures collapsed under their own weight. The ship buckled, then imploded, torn apart by forces no conventional shielding could withstand. Briggs barked a harsh laugh. "One down!" Ward's voice remained cold. "Next targets!" The Havoc rotated with predatory grace, rail batteries spitting kinetic slugs at relativistic speeds. Each impact shattered hulls, punching through shields like tissue. But the core fleet pressed in. They were too many to fear a single ship, or so they thought. Torpedo salvos streaked toward the Havoc. The dreadnoughts' point defense systems sprang to life, shredding the missiles mid-flight, but some detonations rocked the hull. "Minor damage port side," Keller reported. "Structural integrity stable." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Hold position." The battle raged for hours. The Havoc moved with terrifying precision, its weapons cutting down attackers in brutal volleys. 5 core cruisers fell, then a flagship, its engines breached by a grav lance shot, spiraled into Drethos atmosphere in a flaming arc. But numbers took their toll, shields strained under constant bombardment. The outer hull bore deep scoring. Internal alarms flashed as systems cycled to compensate for the relentless assault. On the bridge, Ward remained a statue of resolve. Briggs' voice was sharp. "Shields down to 40%. Keller added, "Multiple enemy squadrons attempting to flank." Ward's voice remained cold and controlled. "Deploy countermeasures. Prepare axial barrage." A new command echoed through the dreadnought. Deep within the Havoc, massive power conduits surged as the axial cannon, a weapon of last resort, charged for firing. Ward's gaze locked on the flagship Judicator's Wrath. "Target their command ship." Aboard the Judicator's Wrath, Admiral Corvin watched the battle unfold with growing disbelief. "By the gods," Valak whispered. "That ship—" Corvin slammed his fist onto the console. "Focus fire! Bring it down!" But it was too late. A surge of energy rippled from the Havoc's core. A blinding beam of condensed plasma, stabilized by gravitic fields, tore through space, faster than any defensive measure could counter. It struck the Judicator's Wrath amidships. The core flagship detonated in a flash of blue-white light, debris scattering across the battlefield. A stunned silence rippled through the core fleet. Then confusion. Disarray. The Havoc pressed its advantage, weapons cycling faster, grav lances ripping apart the now leaderless formation. On the bridge of the Havoc, Briggs grinned savagely. "Their command ship's gone, sir. They're breaking formation." Ward's expression remained ice. "Do not pursue. Hold the kill zone." He knew what was happening. Panic. Without central coordination, the core fleet was unraveling, and that was when Ward gave the final order. "Launch strike wings." From the Havoc's belly, sleek black interceptors screamed into the void. Armed with antimatter warheads and grav-tipped missiles, they tore into the retreating core vessels with merciless efficiency. One by one, ships began to explode or flee, their captains desperate to escape the nightmare they had walked into. Hours later, the stars grew quiet. Wreckage drifted in orbit. Fires burned across the shattered hulks of core ships, and the Havoc remained, scarred but unbroken. On the bridge, Ward surveyed the aftermath. Briggs reported grimly, "Enemy fleet destroyed or in full retreat. We hold Drethos." Keller added, "No further reinforcements detected. Sector is clear. For now." A long silence followed. Ward finally spoke. "Transmit this sector wide," he dictated slowly. "Drethos Prime stands under human dominion. Let all who challenge us remember this day. We will not be subjugated. We will not kneel. We will endure. Humanity is here to stay." The message echoed across the system, a warning to the core and to every empire watching. Deep in the heart of the core's remaining territories, the fallout was immediate. News of the failed counterattack spread like wildfire. Entire trade routes shut down. Member worlds began questioning the Council's authority. Fleet commanders hesitated to mobilize, fearing another havoc. And in shadowed chambers of power, whispers grew. Perhaps it was time to negotiate. Perhaps Earth was no longer a fringe power. But for Ward, for the crew of the Havoc, there would be no rest. Humanity had struck its first true blow in the stars. And the war was only beginning. Captain Grant Ward stood alone in the observation chamber, high above the darkened decks of the Havoc. Below him, the ruined surface of Drethos Prime stretched to the horizon, flickering with fires that refused to die. A world broken, yet held. Behind him, the door hissed open. Briggs entered, moving with the calm precision of a man who had survived hell and was ready for more. "Sir," Briggs began, voice low, "the latest reports are in. No new fleet movements detected. Core forces in this sector are scattered. Command lines are fractured." Ward didn't turn. "And the planet?" Briggs exhaled. "Subjugated. Resistance is down to scattered cells. Civilians too terrified to fight. Local militias either surrendered or fled to the outer territories." Ward finally spoke, voice colder than the void. "Good." He turned from the viewport, stepping towards the central console. With a flick of his hand, the latest intelligence feeds scrolled across the holodisplay, intercepted transmissions from the Core's outer sectors, fragmented fleet orders, political infighting. Briggs followed his gaze. "They're bleeding, sir. We hit them harder than they thought possible." Ward's eyes narrowed. "It's not enough." Briggs glanced at him. "Sir?" Ward's tone sharpened. "Breaking Drethos is only the first move. The Core still believes they can outlast us, that we'll retreat, satisfied with a single victory." He leaned closer to the display, voice low and deliberate. "We need to make sure they understand. Earth isn't a raiding fleet. We're here to reshape this galaxy." Briggs's mouth twisted into a grim smile. "You're thinking expansion." Ward nodded once. "We seize the initiative, strike at their key sectors, their shipyards, their trade hubs, their fuel depots, make them fight on our terms." Briggs straightened. "And if command objects?" Ward's eyes gleamed coldly. "They won't. Not after what we've done here. Earth's brass finally understands what we're up against." He keyed a secure channel. "Signal Major Keller. Prep ground teams for deep strike operations. We're moving fast." Hours later, in the command hall of the shattered council spire, Ward convened a war council. The surviving members of the Core Council knelt in silence, watched over by black-armored human soldiers. Ward stood at the head of the room, flanked by Briggs, Keller, and Hawk. Without ceremony, Ward began. "You have failed." The councilors flinched as if struck. Ward's gaze swept the room. "You thought humanity weak. You thought we'd accept your arrogance, your blockades, your puppet treaties." He stepped forward, voice rising. "Now your capital burns, your fleets lie in pieces, and the people of Drethos kneel beneath our flag." A cold pause. "You will give us your military archives, your star maps, your fleet codes." A trembling councilor dared to speak. You intend to dismantle the Core." Ward's eyes locked on him. "I intend to ensure the Core will never again threaten Earth or any human world." Another spoke up, voice desperate. "You can't hold Drethos forever. Reinforcements will come. Alliances—" Ward cut him off, voice like steel. "Let them come. We'll break them too." He gestured to Keller, who strode forward and slammed a data pad onto the council dais. "Sign the compliance order," Keller growled, "or we'll start dismantling this planet block by block." The councilors looked at one another, beaten, terrified. Slowly one reached forward and pressed his seal to the pad. The others followed. Ward's voice remained cold. "Your Core is finished. The old order is dead." Later, aboard the Havoc, Ward and his officers gathered in the primary war room. Hawk began the briefing. "With the council codes, we've cracked their outer defense grids. Their shipyards at Velthar and Adraxis are exposed. Minimal fleet protection." He tapped the map. "We hit those next, we cripple their ability to rebuild." Briggs leaned in. Fast strikes, no drawn-out sieges. Ward nodded. Exactly. Keep them off balance. Force them to spread their remaining forces thin. Keller spoke next. We've also identified major fuel and supply hubs in the Harvan sector. Cutting those will starve their war machine. Ward's gaze burned. Then that's our path. He looked to the room. We take Drethos, we break their fleets, and then we shatter their ability to wage war. The officers nodded grimly. Ward's voice lowered, deliberate. This is no longer about defense. We're done reacting. He stood tall, eyes hard as iron. From this moment on, humanity is on the offensive. The next campaign began with brutal precision. Within days, the Havoc and its escort ships, smaller but lethal Black Ops vessels, struck deep into core space. At Veltar Prime, Earth's strike wings annihilated a major shipyard, destroying half-completed battleships before they ever saw space. At Adraxis, deep penetration teams sabotaged orbital fuel depots, igniting catastrophic chain reactions that crippled the sector's logistical network. Corps admirals scrambled to mount a defense, but Ward's tactics were unorthodox, fluid, impossible to predict. Strike, vanish, strike again. Every attack sowed more fear and chaos. Within 3 weeks, half the Corps' outer sectors were in turmoil, and through it all, the message was the same. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not stop. In the heart of Corps space, the political fractures deepened. On the world of Virex Hold, Corps warlords gathered in secret. The council is finished, one growled. We can no longer trust their leadership. The humans have outmaneuvered us at every turn, another spat. Our fleets are stretched thin. Morale is collapsing. An older warlord leaned forward, eyes cold. Perhaps. It is time to negotiate. The room fell silent. Finally, one voice spoke, heavy with bitter truth. Negotiate or face extinction. Back aboard the Havoc, Ward stood in the dim war room, watching the galactic map shimmer before him. Briggs approached quietly. Sir, we're getting feelers. Ward's eyes narrowed. Explain. Briggs keyed a feed, intercepted diplomatic signals from certain core factions. Unofficial, cautious, but unmistakable. Talks, back channels, hints of surrender. Ward studied them without emotion. Briggs asked, Do we respond? Ward's voice was cold. Not yet. Briggs tilted his head. Sir? Ward turned to face him. We respond when we dictate the terms, not while they think they still have leverage. He looked back at the map, stars burning across the void. We will strike one more blow, Ward said softly. One they cannot ignore, one that will make it clear. This is no temporary rebellion. This is a new order. Briggs's voice was grim. Target? Ward's eyes gleamed. Harvan, their primary fuel network. Without it, their fleets die in space. He straightened, voice sharp. Prep the strike teams, full assault. Briggs nodded. Understood. As the Havoc moved to new coordinates, the crew worked like a sharpened blade. Ward watched them, pride simmering beneath his cold exterior. They were warriors now, hardened by fire, unafraid of the Corps' ancient power. And Ward himself? He was no longer just a captain of Earth's Black Fleet. He was the architect of humanity's rise. And he would see this war through to its bitter, glorious end. The Havoc cruised through the black, engines throttled to silent approach. Ahead lay the Harvan sector, heart of the Corps' deep space logistics network, fuel depots, repair yards, resupply convoys, the arteries that kept their fleets alive. Captain Ward stood at the bridge helm, watching the stars shift as the ship neared its target. Briggs reported quietly, Scans confirm the primary depot is active. 32 fueling stations in geosynchronous orbit. Civilian haulers cycling in and out. 2 escort flotillas on patrol, not full strength. Ward nodded, eyes cold. They still don't think we'll hit this deep. Briggs smirked. They will. Ward's voice remained steady. Cloak status? Hawk answered from intelligence. Fully stable. No sensor pings yet. We're in their blind spot. Ward studied the tactical map. Harvan wasn't just a target of opportunity. It was the target. Without it, the Corps' inner fleets would be crippled. Supply lines would snap, worlds would go dark, and more than that, it would shatter the illusion that the Corps still held the center. This was the blow Ward had planned for since the fall of Drethos. He keyed the command channel. All strike teams, final briefing. We move in 1 hour. Below deck, in the assault bay, Keller paced before the assembled ground teams. Their black armor gleamed under the red lights. Each soldier had survived Drethos. Each one was ready to bleed again. Keller's voice was gravel. Harvan's not a fortress, but it's dense. No room for error. He gestured to the schematic hovering in the air. Primary objective, fuel command hub. Secondary, reactor cores. We take them down, this sector burns. He leaned closer. Civilian haulers? Fair game. They chose sides when they fueled core warships. A grim nod rippled through the ranks. Keller's eyes gleamed. We hit fast. No speeches, no mercy. The Havoc emerged from Cloak within striking range. Instant alarms flared across the Harvan stations, but too late. Launch, Ward ordered. Assault dropships streaked from the Havoc's belly, engines screaming. Simultaneously, Gravlance batteries opened fire. The first escort frigate was torn in half before its crew could react. A second erupted in flames, debris scattering. Core patrol squadrons scrambled, but chaos ruled. At Harvan Station Prime, Administrator Terran watched in horror as the human dreadnought cut through their defenses. "It's them!" he gasped. "That's the Havoc! It's here!" Officers panicked. "Multiple hull breaches! Black-armored troops inbound!" Terran staggered to the comm console. "Signal the inner fleets. We're under attack," Static answered. The humans were jamming long-range comms. Terran's blood ran cold. Ward rode in the lead dropship, armored and armed. The shuttle punched through defensive flak, skimming low toward the main command hub. Explosions rocked the station as boarding teams swarmed in all directions. Ward keyed his rifle. No delays. The assault was merciless. Core defenders fought, but disorganized, outgunned. Human squads moved with lethal precision, clearing decks in minutes. Ward led the charge into the fuel control tower. Plasma bolts hissed past as his team breached the main doors. Inside, a terrified Core officer opened fire. Ward's grav pistol snapped twice. The alien collapsed. "Secure the controls," Ward ordered. Briggs reported from the secondary team. "Reactors are rigged, sir." Charges set Ward's voice was calm. "Stand by for synchronized detonation." Across Harvan orbit, the battle spiraled. The Havoc unleashed salvo after salvo, crippling station defenses. Civilian haulers tried to flee. Some made it. Others were torn apart by interceptors. Core reinforcements scrambled to respond. But their nearest fleets were too far, already stretched thin from the Drethos disaster. Inside the command tower, Ward stood before the main fuel grid console. Keller's voice came through. "All teams reporting green. We own this sector." Ward looked to Briggs. "Trigger the broadcast." Briggs keyed a signal. The same ruthless message that had echoed across Drethos now pulsed through the Harvan sector. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity strikes where it wills, surrender or burn. Ward gave one final command. "Detonate." Explosions rippled across the orbitals. Fuel depots erupted into firestorms. Entire stations cracked apart as reactor cores went critical. From space, the Harvan sector became a burning wound in the void, light years visible. and from every world dependent on those fuel lines. Panic. Back aboard the Havoc, Ward watched the inferno on the main screen. Briggs stood beside him. Strike complete. No organized core resistance remaining. Keller reported from the ground teams. We're exfiltrating. 0 human casualties. Ward's voice was low, satisfied. Excellent. Hawk added grimly. Intercepted core comms show total logistical collapse across 4 sectors. They're falling back, scrambling for alternative routes. Ward's gaze remained cold. They won't find them. In the days that followed, the impact was brutal. Core fleets stalled, stranded, unable to resupply. Trade routes collapsed. Black markets exploded in price as fuel became scarce. Worlds once loyal to the core began to question their allegiance. On Virec's hold, the warlords raged. They've crippled us. Our fleets can't move. Our warships rot in dry dock. And the bitter truth emerged. The humans had forced the core onto the defensive. And now, they had no way to strike back. Aboard the Havoc, Ward gathered his officers. The holomap showed a core in retreat, bleeding, fragmented. Ward spoke quietly. The core is cracking. They can't fight an asymmetric war. They built an empire on the illusion of invincibility. He looked to the room, eyes burning. We've shattered that illusion. Briggs asked, "What's next, sir?" Ward's answer was ice. "We push. We bleed them dry." He gestured to the stars. Every fuel line, every fleet yard, every world that dared back their tyranny. His voice hardened. Until the core is ashes. The officers nodded grimly. Ward looked out at the black. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the Harvan strike, the core was in freefall. Entire sectors had gone dark. Fuel shortages crippled inner fleets. Civilian unrest exploded across once loyal worlds. Political leaders fled their palaces. Pirates and opportunists surged into the power vacuum. And the name that echoed in every corner of the galaxy, whispered with fear, with anger, with bitter awe, was Captain Grant Ward. Aboard the Havoc, Ward stood in the dim war room, watching the galaxy map pulse with shifting data. Briggs entered quietly. "Sir, it's done. Harvan's collapse triggered full core withdrawal from the frontier." Ward nodded. "And the inner fleets?" Hawk's voice came from intelligence. "Paralyzed. No fuel, no supply lines. Core command can't coordinate a counteroffensive." Ward's gaze stayed on the map. They had done it. In less than 2 months, Earth's Black Fleet, with a single dreadnought and a handful of covert strike teams, had crippled the mightiest empire in the galaxy. But Ward knew the final blow had yet to fall. On Virec's hold, the last remaining warlords gathered in desperation. The council chamber, once a place of pride, was now filled with smoke and fear. "They've taken Harvan. Our fleets are dying on the Vine. Our colonies are defecting. They refuse to send tribute." An elder warlord slammed a fist on the table. "Then we must sue for peace, before Earth sends more of those monsters." A younger one spat. "Peace? With humans?" The elder's eyes burned. Better a bitter peace than extinction. Back aboard the Havoc, Hawk intercepted the signals. "Sir, they're moving. Back channels opened. Core factions are begging for talks." Ward's eyes narrowed. "What terms are they offering?" Hawk sneered. "Pathetic. Ceasefire with dignity. A return to pre-war borders. They still think they have leverage." Briggs chuckled darkly. "After we gutted their empire?" Ward's voice was cold. "They don't understand yet." He leaned forward. "Prepare the broadcast. One final message." Across the galaxy, the transmission echoed. Ward stood before the camera, armored, implacable, the face of humanity's vengeance. His voice was iron. "To the core's warlords, to every world that once bowed to your counsel," hear me. You ruled through fear, through lies, through the blood of those you deemed lesser. No more. Earth will not accept your terms. There will be no return to old borders, no false peace. There will only be justice. Surrender, unconditional, or face annihilation. This is humanity's galaxy now. The message sent shockwaves through the already fractured core. On Virex Hold, the warlords erupted in chaos. They'll kill us all! We must fight! With what? Our fleets are dead. Our worlds are burning. And in the shadows, more leaders began to defect, sending secret messages to Ward's fleet, begging for terms, offering worlds in exchange for survival. The core was eating itself alive. Ward gathered his officers for one final push. The core is collapsing, Hawk reported. Their remaining leadership is fragmenting. Half their inner worlds have declared neutrality. The rest are ripe for the taking. Briggs leaned in. If we strike Virex Hold now, we end it. Ward's eyes gleamed coldly. Then we do. He looked to the room. Full assault. No half measures. We finish this war. The Havoc moved like a predator. In its wake, the remaining Black Fleet, now reinforced with defected human ships and defectors from shattered core forces, followed. Virex Hold awaited, the last stronghold of the core. The assault began with surgical brutality. Grav lances shattered orbital defenses. Core squadrons attempted a desperate stand and were torn apart. Ward led the charge personally. Dropships punched through the atmosphere. Black armored teams stormed the capital. Resistance crumbled under the relentless assault. In the Grand Council Hall, Ward himself strode through shattered doors. Warlords knelt in fear, some weeping, others defiant to the last. Ward's voice cut through the silence. Your reign is over. A trembling elder spoke. What will you do with us? Ward's gaze was ice. You will sign unconditional surrender. The core dissolves. Your fleets disband. Your worlds answer to Earth's new order. A long pause. Then, one by one, they signed. The war was over. Weeks later, aboard the Havoc, Ward stood again in the observation chamber. Below, Virex Hold, now under human administration, glittered with new banners. Briggs approached quietly. Sir, messages from Earth Command. You're to be commended. They're calling it the greatest victory in human history. Ward's voice was low. It's only the beginning. Briggs nodded. The galaxy's watching. Ward's gaze hardened. Good. Let them watch. Let them remember. He turned from the viewport. Humanity has risen, and we are not done.